Hey friends! So it's definitely been a hot minute since I posted on YouTube. Honestly, it's been a hot minute since I've even posted on Bookstagram, just because it's been my last semester of college. Finished my last final yesterday. Kind of crazy that I'm here for a few more days having to pack up my stuff, do all the senior stuff. Graduation's this weekend, but I have no more assignments to do. So it definitely feels a little weird. But between doing all my senior stuff, like my capstone and stuff, I definitely have not had enough time to read to do anything fun for Bookstagram or YouTube. But I figured, since I have to turn in all of my books tomorrow, since it's technically the last day of finals tomorrow, I would go through all the things that I have read. Thumbnail. This semester. I only really had books for 2 classes, which both were creative writing classes. One was a poetry class and one was an upper level hybrid genres class, which is really cool. There was 2 books that we didn't read in those classes, and then 2 of them were craft text, but the rest of these were collections of different things, the more creative texts. I guess I'll just go from smallest to biggest instead of in order, because I can't really remember the order I read them. This one on the top is The Crying Book by Heather Crystal. This was for the hybrid class because this is a branched kind of essay book. It's kind of like Maggie Nelson's Bluets, but worse. The first third of this book was so strong. I loved the writing and the things that she was talking about, because she was talking about motherhood and the passing of one of her friends in relation to crying. And there's pictures and stuff. And other sources that she draws in. But as the book progresses, she loses some of her voice. Sorry, I was looking at the picture from the back, and I feel like that makes sense. She just loses her voice when she's including some of the sources, and I think she had some threads that she didn't have a lot of personal experience with, and so she kind of lost me. And by the end, I was like, okay, we get it, you're crying. But the first third, really good. Ooh, the next one was The Collected Works of Billy the Kid. This is a mix of poetry and prose. And this one was really good. Yeah, because it's kind of since there's all these myths with Billy the Kid and who he was. I feel like this collection does a really good job of blurring fiction and reality. Because it has pictures, it has interviews, has a bunch of different styles just in one document. Collection, whatever. And I really enjoyed reading it. It definitely was giving, this was his hyperfixation, because that's relatable. I love to write about the things that I'm really into. Wrote a whole short story about pirates once, just because I like pirates. It wasn't very good, but it's because I'm a poet and not a fiction writer. But yeah, I don't have a lot to say about this one except for I really liked it. And it's probably been the most unique forms I've ever read. And I definitely recommend this one. Ooh, speaking of Maggie Nelson, this is Jane. I've actually read the Red Parts from Maggie Nelson. This is the first thing I read by her in our nonfiction class. And then in my advanced prose class, we read Bluets. And then Bluets, I say Bluets, whatever. And then now I finally got to read Jane. just because it's a bunch of different styles of poetry together. And also combining journal entries from Jane's diary. This was like really haunting in a good way, very beautiful. I could tell that this just meant a lot to her. And I'm just so in awe of, I'm so in awe of Maggie Nelson and her writing, just because everything I've read from her has been fucking fantastic. I remember there was one line in here that like really fucked with me, and I just don't remember what it was, since I think this was the first thing I read all semester. But it was something from one of her diary entries. I just remember had to set the book down for a second, and I sobbed while reading this one. Dare I say, this one might be my favorite thing that I read in this class. We read, I don't have it with me, because technically we only read like a PDF version of it, but I own a copy of Ross Gay's Book of Delights, and we read a bunch of essays out of there, which I have something else from Ross Gay, so I can talk about him later, but one of my favorite writers of all time, so. We also read Citizen by Claudia Rankine. This one was really powerful, because it's just talking about like the injustices that Claudia and other Black people have faced, and not even like, some of them were really extreme, but some of them were just like someone just saying a rude comment to them out of nowhere. And yeah, this one also mixed images in as well. That was my reading response. Oh well. Yeah, I think the pictures were one of my favorite parts of this, just because it helped emphasize the things she was saying, and like, I also think she did a wonderful job with like white space and just being able to like drop something and then like making the reader sit with it for a second. Cause a lot of this kind of stuff I wasn't aware of, because she talks about, what's this tennis player's name? Who is this? I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because she did a fucked up thing. But like, I would have never really known about that, just because I don't know about tennis. And so there was just a lot of new perspective kind of stuff that I read in this one. And it was really good. Like, this is so cool. Well, I mean, it's kind of sad, but like, just saying all of the people who have died because of like police brutality and stuff. So this was another like haunting read, but in a different way. This one kind of like left you thinking more than Jane did. Jane was just kind of sad. Ross Gay, completely different vibes than the last one, especially because it's literally catalog of unabashed gratitude. I think Ross Gay is probably, I've never met him, never seen him in real life. I just know he's one of the nicest people on this fucking planet. His writing, so incredible, and has definitely been one of my biggest influences in poetry, not only this semester, but just in general. This one naturally is for the poetry class that I was in. Yeah, not a whole lot to say about this one, just because it is truly just so incredible how he's able to move his poems so smoothly and talk about like a bunch of different things at once, because he'll be talking about something like a fruit tree and then go into something either racial or political or whatever, and then move it back, and it doesn't feel forced or out of place. I know he did a collection with Amy Nezuko, who's another one of my favorite authors, writers, whatever. And I really, really want to read that one. I just know it'll be amazing. But yes, if you're gonna pick up a poetry collection, I recommend this one. Yeah, that's about it. Next was The Carrying from Ada Limon. Yeah, this was another really great collection. This had another, what was the other one? Like the Crying Book, this one talked a lot about like motherhood and carrying a baby, hence carrying. But there's also like some grief and other things within here. I did an imitation of one of the poems in here called What I Didn't Know Before. And it turned out to be one of my favorite poems I've written. So yeah, there's a lot of like nature-y, garden-y stuff in this one. And I definitely think that if you like poetry, you'll like this book collection. I was like one of the only ones who didn't get like the pretty cover. I just got like the red cover, which is fine, but yeah, definitely recommend this one. Next was Red Ochre from Jessica Poley. My professor actually did one of the blurbs on the back, which is pretty cool. I think out of everything I read, this is the one I read the least out of because I think I was sick when they were talking about this one. But the few that I read were in the first part, and I think I read some of the ones from the back. This one had some different forms and like different looking poems than the other two collections. Because she did a good bit of chintos in here, which is when you like take lines from other people's poems and like combine them all together to make your own poem, which is definitely a fun exercise. And if you want to dabble in writing poetry but don't really know what to write, would be a really good exercise. But yeah, not a whole lot to say about this one just because I didn't finish reading it all the way. But what I did read, I liked a lot, and I want to finish the collection. Pretty much all of these I would want to own, so hopefully I get to keep some of them. It's always a surprise going in there and they say, oh, you can keep this one. So hopefully I get to keep some of them so I can reread and or finish them. Enough said. This collection is Frank Sonnets from Diane Seuss. This was an interesting collection for me to read because, like the name suggests, they're all sonnets. They're all 14 lines, which she does. I appreciate the fact that she tries to make them look different. Like, they're not stereotypical Shakespearean sonnets with the rhymes and everything. And she kind of exaggerates what 14 lines should be. Let me see if I can pull out this page without ripping it out. But this really awesome, this one, like technically it's 14 lines, but the 14 lines stretch across 2 pages, which is pretty cool. This one was just really hard for me to read more than a few at a time, just because I get bored when I'm looking at the same thing, and since I know, like when I flip through they all look exactly the same, it's just hard for my brain to read a lot of these. But I appreciate how she was able to say everything she wanted in 14 lines. And I think she's really funny. she actually did a Zoom call with the creative writing department my sophomore year. And at that point I hadn't taken any poetry classes and like I didn't know who she was. But I remember really liking the stuff that she read and I thought she was so funny and she just felt so real. And if you look up any pictures or videos of her, she kind of looks scary. But she also looks like she would be your great aunt, that like the fun like wine aunt kind of vibes. And so I enjoyed, there's some of these that I really liked and some of them I didn't like as much. And maybe one day I'll try to write a sonnet. Was not this semester because I chose to write a persona poem instead. But one day I'll tackle a sonnet in the style of Diane Seuss instead of a Shakespearean sonnet because that seems more doable. Last but not least, this collection's called One Big Self from C.D. Wright. This was for the hybrid class. I think I got in a little bit. That's kind of another response. This was a book of poetry, but they definitely look really different. And some of them was like, there's this Q&A kind of like poem-y section, and some of the poems are really long, and some of them read more like prose. This one is so fascinating because it's about like the prison system. And I don't know the person who takes the photographs, but she worked with somebody who would take pictures of the prisoners any way they wanted them to like take the pictures, which were really cool. And you can look up those pictures online. This might have been the most challenging read out of everything I read this semester, just because she's combining the voices of all the people that she spoke to at the prison. And so sometimes I don't know if it's her speaking or if it's one of the prisoners. And sometimes it'll like bounce between prisoners and stuff, which makes sense because it's like one big self. Like we're all kind of the same. But it was really interesting. A lot of interesting language and images. Some interesting repetition in different places. And yeah. Difficult, but I think that there was a lot that people should read from this collection. Just because there might be like things you didn't know, or just like helps you put in perspective the people who are stuck in prisons and are treated like shit. But yeah, those are the things I read. Yeah. My brain just completely shut down. I'm so tired. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully now that I'll be graduating, I'll be able to spend more time reading and making content. I will be working at a bookstore for the next little while I try to figure out what's next for me. And so hopefully that gives me even more time to read. And maybe I can film some stuff that I do there. Not really sure yet, have to feel the vibes out. But yeah, kind of crazy. This is the last video I'll film in college, in my dorm room, currently in the bathroom. Don't know if I ever said that, but my neighbors were playing music really loud, and it was the same annoying beat over and over. Been listening to it for like an hour and a half, and I really wanted to film. And luckily, the bathroom was like pretty quiet. Didn't have to deal with their music anymore. But yeah, that's really all I had to say. I hope at least one of these books sounded interesting to you guys, and you'll check them out and read them, and tell me your thoughts if you love them or hate them. Looking at you, the crying book. because I'd love to talk more about them, especially when I can actually look at the book a little better and try to remember all of the thoughts I had about them. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and hopefully I'll see you soon.